Welcome to the Fittish Dad Podcast. I am your host, Caleb Bowers. Well, it's morning. Morning for me. Good morning, everybody. At whatever time that it is when you are watching this. Welcome to the Fittish Dad Podcast. We are going to do another mobile episode today on my way to work this morning. But I wanted to spend some time talking about today. You know, for the first couple episodes, we've been talking about why I like to run, why I think everybody else should run, a lot of the mental and emotional benefits of it. More so just trying to convince y'all that don't run to start running, and those that already do run to encourage you to, run more. But today I want to talk about the more practical side of it, and I want to lay out the groundwork on how to train and run your first marathon. And this is going to come from a perspective of train and run your first marathon with little to no prior running experience. And so I'm going to lay out the whole groundwork of what it takes to train, terminology, the science behind it, why you do what you do, how to handle, the workload, recovery, nutrition, sleep, all that sort of stuff. And then we're going to go to 2 episodes a week now. And then on the second episode, we're going to talk about how to actually, strategize and run, your race day, how to run your race. So we're going to dive in. And like I said, this is going to be, sorry for the shakiness, road is terrible. This is going to be from a perspective of someone who is little to no running experience. So if you have any running like base where, you're currently maybe running, 5 to 10 miles a week, where, you can run 2 to 3 miles consecutively without much difficulty, then you can kind of adjust accordingly. But I would say for someone who has little to no running experience or base, and that means that you currently either can't or struggle to run 1 mile. That's what I would say as, someone who has little to no running base, or aerobic base. And if that is you, I would say it would take roughly, and I said it's not necessarily a one-size-fits-all, because there's just a lot of extenuating factors and variables per person that change the details of the training. But anywhere from 18 to 24 weeks is what I would give it to take somebody from not running at all to being able to run their first marathon. And so 18 to 24 weeks, that's a good chunk of time. It's going to require some commitment. It's going to require some sacrifice. It's going to require lots of planning, lots of thinking and strategizing in terms of when you can knock out your training and still be able to handle, everyday life. Because unfortunately, as much as we'd all love to be able to revolve our lives around running, unfortunately, we still have other responsibilities. You still got to work. You still got to feed your kids. You still got to talk to your wife. Do all the things that bring value and meaning to life. You still got to do all those stuff. So 18 to 24 weeks, you need to have, first of all, you need to look within yourself and understand the level of commitment that it's going to take from you, and that it's going to require of you in order to actually be able to achieve this goal. It's not something, when I ran my first one, I was so naive which I think helped, because if I was not as naive as I was going into it, I would have probably like pushed it off and probably would have never even done the first one, just because knowing me personally, just push it off. Oh, well, oh, it's not perfect yet. Oh, it's blah 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 blah. So I had to learn the hard way, because that is my personality. But you don't have to be as stubborn as me. You don't have to. I've found this out. You don't have to be stubborn. So if you want to learn from my mistakes, you're in the right place. If you want to take the wise road versus the hard road, you're in the right place. But those 18 to 24 weeks are going to break up into different phases. So there's going to be 4 different phases. So roughly, let's see. Gosh, I should have done the math before I started filming. But 18 to 24. So roughly, you know, roughly like 6 weeks, I think. Roughly 4 to 6 weeks per phase, give or take. But that first, so there's going to be, I break those 4 phases up. The first phase is conditioning phase. That's just getting yourself, pretty much just like, that's training yourself to get ready to train. So we got a conditioning phase, we got a build phase, we got a work phase, and then we got a taper phase. So that conditioning phase, that is just pretty much getting this, like I said, this is coming from somebody, from a perspective for somebody who has little to no running base. That's getting yourself to be able to, get a good running base. And then you're going to build that running base. You're going to expand that running base, your aerobic base, which is your ability for your body and your muscles to operate efficiently. In other words, for your muscles to use oxygen efficiently at higher intensities, so that way you can be able to run for 26.2 miles. It said then we have the work phase, where that's going to be a lot. We're gonna up those miles, maybe do some. Now I said your first marathon, we're not going to focus on speed or time per se. It's more, your goal is to finish and finish strong. So it's like I think a good goal, depending on where you're at, is, so like my first goal for my first one was finish, whatever that meant. My goal for my second one was to finish the whole thing running. And so it's like, just depending on where you're at, your goal may be just to run the whole thing, whatever pace that may be. Or, your goal for your first one may be just to finish, also at whatever pace that may be. But I think either of those, depending on the person, is a good place to start. You want it to be achievable. I know of very few people that, like, for their first marathon are doing, 3 hours and 40 minutes and stuff like that. Now, I do know people that have done stuff like that, but like, so they have a very athletic background and base, and some type of running background, whether it be even from high school or college or something like that. But if that is you, that is stinking awesome that you're faster than me. And I'm so glad that it's just so easy for you. And this is not sarcasm at all. I do not feel the need to compete with everybody else and run faster than everybody else. At least that's what I say out loud. But on the inside, I'm usually screaming. But that's beside the point. So, that first phase, the conditioning phase. So this phase is for, in other words, training to train. You're training yourself to get ready to train yourself. So on this one, we're going to work on focusing, we're going to focus on working towards being able to run, I would say 3 miles over at the end of the phase, be able to run 3 miles comfortably. So 3 to 5 miles comfortably, to where you can run a 3 to 5 mile run and be able to also, the next day also run another 3 to 5 mile run. So during this phase, you're going to start off. I said, and depending on the first day, I want you to see. The first day is going to be a test day. Like you remember in school when you would do a quiz, or like they would do a pre quiz or something like that, so that like the teacher would be able to see where everybody stands on the subject, to see what they need to focus on. If everybody tests well on this specific area of the subject, okay, we won't focus heavy on that. We'll focus more on the areas that they struggle with. So it's kind of like that. So that first run is going to be your mile test. I want you to run a mile your first day and see if you can run a mile. Some people just, are able to run a mile right off the bat. That's great. If you can run a full mile, and that's not, run a full mile and not die. Like be able to walk back to the car, or, walk back in the house, you're able to run the mile, have, like speak during the mile. You're not just so out of breath that you can't even form a sentence, and see where you're at, get your kind of base. If you can do that, then great. So then we're going to focus more on being able to run for 3 miles. I said, if you cannot run a mile off the bat, then we're going to start with what we call the run walk method. And if you can't run a mile off the bat, then also I believe your goal should be to just finish when it comes to your marathon. That should be your goal. And so off the bat, we're going to start working on a run walk method. What that means is you're going to focus on building that aerobic base to where you can run a mile. And so you're going to start with, I would say, running for 2 minutes, walking for 3 minutes. And then we're going to do a 5-minute stretch. So 5-minute split. So and then if you can do that, once you hit a mile and you feel pretty comfortable, then as you continue through the training, you're going to start shortening the distance between that run walk. So you may run for 3 minutes, walk for 2. Run for 4 minutes, walk for 1, until you can run without stopping. And you're gonna, for that first phase, your goal is, like I said, by the end of it, you want to be able to run 3 to 5 miles not 7 days a week. You need to be able to, for the whole training, you need to run probably minimum 4 days a week. I would say ideal is 5 days. 6 days is pushing it. But I said 4 to 5 days a week, I think, is ideal in terms of being able to get the amount of miles in that are necessary without having to just do a bunch of long runs, but also allowing your body adequate time to recover, to rest and recover in between. So that way your body's able to build itself back up after you constantly and consistently tear it down. And so that first 4 to 6 weeks, you're going to focus on conquering the mile, conquering the 3 mile, getting that ready to begin that build phase. And then when you get to the build phase, so the next 4 to 6 weeks, you're going to start building on building that aerobic base. And your aerobic base, as I said, is your body's ability, it's your muscles' ability to efficiently process oxygen in order to keep up the higher intensity paces without your heart rate jumping through the roof. So when you feel like you can't get enough oxygen in your lungs while you're running, it's actually not your lungs that are starving for oxygen, it's your muscles that are starving for oxygen. So the reason why you is because it's trying to get all that oxygen, the blood pumps to your muscles, because the blood carries the oxygen from the lungs and into your muscles, which is what the body uses to fuel itself. The muscles use to fuel itself, which is your aerobic. Your aerobic ability is your muscles' ability to process oxygen and use oxygen and glycogen, which is your body's source of energy, fuel, which glycogen, if you didn't know, glycogen is also sugars. So carbohydrates are going to be required. Carbohydrates are your friend. That's a whole, I think we did a whole episode on nutrition, or I want to do a whole episode on nutrition. One of those two. But carbs are not bad. Fats are not bad. Protein, not bad. I don't think anybody's ever said protein's bad, but I'm sure there will be a day when someone's like, no, cut out all protein. And that person is a dummy. So, you need carbs, because carbs are going to fuel your muscles to be able to run. So you need the carbs. You also need the proteins to build up the muscles after you tear them down from the pounding of the pavement or trail, whichever one you choose to run on. But during that build phase, second phase, you're going to... Oh, and another thing, I probably should have... you're not really going to have to worry about this so much during the conditioning phase, because you're not going to be doing a lot of long distances just quite yet. You'll do, try to run, you want to average, I would say, 10 to 12 miles a week. And that you split that up over, 4 to 5 runs. So they're not going to do any long runs or anything like that. You're just going to, like I said, 3 to 5 miles is going to be your max. Really build it up to where during the build phase, we could start to push those mileage totals. Gosh, it is way too early. It's not. It's 8 o'clock, and I've been awake since 4:30, but I'm tired. So that build phase, you're going to start increasing that mileage, the total mileage. And there's a rule that we follow, and it's the 10% rule. So you don't want to jump up your weekly mileage by more than 10%, because what happens if you jump up your mileage too quickly, then your body has a higher chance of overtraining, overusing, and overworking, and you'll get injured. Said you'll have just different, and obviously there's going to be some growing pains, but there's a difference between being hurt and being injured. Obviously a lot of times it's going to hurt. You're going to be sore, your feet are going to be tired. You're going to have to deal with soreness and stiffness and everything like that. There's a difference between that and being injured. Injured means that you can't just run through it. Actually, running through it's just going to make it worse. A lot of times, like being stiff and sore because you're tired, because you've been obviously putting in all this work, that's going to happen, and you'll find, it'll make the first 2 miles suck, but then the third and fourth mile, you'll be like, okay, I feel a lot better. So, but injury is the first mile sucks, the second mile's worse, the third mile, and it's like, it just keeps getting worse. It doesn't get better. You can't just work through it. You can't tough your way through it. So you want to make sure you're not jumping up your weekly mileage by more than 10% per week. So we've been doing 12 to 15, or 10 to 12, 12 to 15. Whatever I said about the first phase, that's, been doing that. And then during that first week of the build phase, what you're going to do is you're going to start, like, if you've been doing 3, that's been your mileage. If you've been doing 5 or 4, that falls in between. But is you're going to start doing, you're going to do that distance. You're going to do like a 5 mile on Monday, and however you do your split through the week. I'm just giving an example. 5 mile on Monday, 3 miles on Tuesday, and then say do Wednesday, you do a break, and then you do Thursday, you do 6 miles. Like you push it a mile further than what you've been doing. And then on Saturday, you get Friday, you do another break. And on the breaks on Wednesday, or let me finish the week. So Saturday, then you're going to do your long run. So your first long run, you're going to push. This is where you're going to start pushing your distances. And you're going to do, so like that first one I suggest, like if the longest you've ran is 5, so then you do 6 on Thursday. And then you're going to go to 8. Let's see. For your first one, I would do 8. yeah, I said is push it and all these, like I said, you're not focusing on pace. If you need to run, use the run walk method when pushing those longer distances as you build. That's okay too. Said the more important part is about getting the miles in. Um, you want to be able to push yourself, but you don't want to overwork yourself, because if you overwork yourself, you are more susceptible and likely to get injured. And there is, like I said, it's literally not a sprint, it's a marathon. You know, that quote said it literally is a marathon. So you got a long training schedule ahead of you. So don't worry about trying to, make sure you're looking absolutely fantastic on every run. It's more important is to get it in than necessarily how well you get it in. So now if you're consistently struggling like every time, then you may need to scale back and extend that training. So if you've like set it up where you're going to do 18 weeks and it's the load of it is taking a toll on you that you can't seem to overcome. Okay, well then maybe you need to push it out to 22 weeks and or whatever it may be. And I said it may be longer. You may need 30 weeks, whatever it may be. You may need a whole year, and that's okay. I said the goal is to create habits and to work your way towards achieving this goal, however long it may take. It's not something that you're going to be able to conquer in a weekend or something like that. It's going to require, like I said, time, effort, commitment, sacrifice. You're going to have to get rid of the ego. You're going to have to get rid of your pride and really be able to look at yourself in an honest manner and say, okay, this is what I'm able to do right now, and this is what it's going to require me. This is what's going to be required of me to achieve what I want to achieve. And I'm going to set this date, but I have to understand that I am human and I am limited, even though I'm trying to grow those limits right now. I need to be honest about where I'm at and what I'm able to do, honestly do, realistically do, and what I'm able to honestly and realistically achieve in the time period given. So you got to be honest with yourself. You got to get rid of the pride, get rid of the ego. Ego is not your friend. Ego will destroy you. It will destroy your running. It will destroy your health. Don't be an ego runner. And that's the hardest thing, because when you run, you're better than everybody. So it's really hard to not have an ego, because you're just like, you're running. It's like 5 a.m. and you're running by all these people sleeping in their houses, and you're just like, y'all are just a bunch of losers, a bunch of weaklings. At least that's what I think. But you're going to start that build phase, like I said, that first long run, about 8 miles. And then you just start going up from there. You'll do the same kind of thing, 5, 3, 6, and then do a 10 mile. And then you're going to start increasing those weekly mileages too. So you do, maybe you do 5, 6, 11 miles or 12 miles. Whatever the total is, you want to start, like I said, 10% increase. So if you run, your first week you run 15, 16 miles and 10%, then the next week you're going to run to 18 to 20 miles, and then you're going to increase that up through that build phase. And then, like I said, 4 to 6 weeks, and then you get into your third phase, which the third phase is the work phase. The work phase is where you're going to push it. This is where you want your training to peak. So this is, like I said, you are, at this point, when you're starting, you are 8 to 10 weeks out from your marathon, 2.5 months out from your race, maybe just about 3 months at the most. This is where you're going to really start pushing it. So at this point, you're going to start adding in 1 day of speed work. And the only reason you're going to have speed work, I said, and it's not because you're trying to run faster, but because this is going to help, number one, build your ability to push through when it's difficult and when it hurts, but also going to be able to stretch that ability and capacity for your legs to be able to work when they're tired, and for your ability to run when you at the end of the race, when I say you're gonna get tired. Even the most prepared people and people that have been training their whole lives, everybody gets tired at the end of a marathon, no matter what pace you're running at. So you're gonna start that third phase by adding that one day of speed work. I generally do mine on Wednesdays, because said you have Monday. So I run Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then I may run Friday. It depends. Depends on how. If like I feel like I need the rest, I won't. But there's a group where I live that runs. They do 5 at 5 on Fridays. So if I run, I'll go with them. And it's just laid back. It's a social run and stuff like that. So it's not anything crazy. And I may not run the 5. I may do like 2 or 3 miles, just out there for fun and connecting and stuff like that. But get some rest day in before then doing my long run on the weekend, either Sunday or Saturday, and whichever one I don't do is also a rest day. But I said I do them on Wednesdays because it just gives me, it's not the first run of the week, but it's also gives me adequate enough time to recover before doing my long run. And there's 3 types of speed workouts that I personally like to do. There are repeats, there's tempo runs, and there's fartleks. And that is, yes, FARTLEKS, fartleks. I think it's a Swedish word. But tempo runs, or what did I say first? Repeats. Repeats is what I do those on a track. There's a middle school near my house that allows public to use the track, but you can do it on anywhere, especially like if you have a smartwatch. A lot of times you can program workouts into your like fitness app stuff, so where it'll measure out the distances for you, so you don't have to be on a track to be able to easily measure out distances. But so like when I was training for my sub 4, when I would do a repeat, I would do 1K or 1 kilometer repeats. So I would do 2 mile warm up, and then I would do like 6, 8. I think the longest one I did was 10K repeats. So what that means is I would run a kilometer at either at like slightly faster than marathon pace, so it would be more like 85 to 90%, or no, it'd be more like 80 to 85% of my max pace, or max effort, and then I'd have like 2 minutes rest after. So I'd do the pace for 1 kilometer, and then once I hit it 1 kilometer, then I would do like 2 minutes rest, and then I would do that, and said I would repeat that 6, 8, 10 times depending on the workout. So it would start like my first one I would do like 5 or 6, and then I would do that and then I said then next week I might do like a different one. I said, but by the longest one I did was 10K repeats, and then and you can do I just, for the marathon I would do kilometers. I said, but you can do shorter distances if you want to run faster, but like I said, that's not really necessary for someone running their first one. But I would just, you use it to push yourself a little bit. It's not a sprint, you're not all out sprinting, but you want to be able to push the pace a little bit, so that way you can because you want to be able to, you can't just, want not just build your base out wide, but also begin to build it up. And so you be able to do that. What was the second one? Sorry, there's a lot of traffic, so I'm trying to pay attention to all these different things at one time. Repeats. Okay, so the second one is a tempo run, and a tempo run is where, so you're gonna do like we would do 2 mile warm up, and it doesn't have to be 2 miles. I was just, it could be a mile, mile to 2 mile warm up, and then we would do a tempo. So then we do 3 miles at tempo, so at marathon pace, and then depending on, so the first one we'd do 3 miles at tempo and then 2 mile cool down. That would be the first one, and then we'd build on that. We'd 4 miles, 5 miles, 6 miles at tempo, or we would do, sometimes we would combine the two, and we would do let me explain the third one first. So then so that one's obviously, tempo is pretty easy, pretty self-explanatory. And then fartleks, so it's a Swedish term, I believe, but it's where you would do, it's like the run walk method, but it's obviously run fast and run not as fast. So you would do like 3 minute or like 2 minute at like 90% effort. So the fartlek, you're really going to be pushing paces, but you're not doing it for long distances. It's like burst. So like 2 minutes at 85 to 90% effort, and then 3 minute rest. And you can change the times and stuff like that. But and a lot of times with fartleks, you can do it by itself, but we would do them combined, like I said, like a tempo. So like you would do like 2 mile warm up, 3 mile at tempo, and then we would do 1 mile, not cool down, but rest, and then we would do like 10 fartleks, where we would do 2 minute 2 minute effort, 3 minute rest, and we do that 10 times, and then you do a mile to 2 mile cool down when you want to get to those longer speed workouts. Now, so you don't have to do crazy speed workouts when you're starting out. That's when you're trying to really build paces and you're trying to shoot for some better times, stuff like that. But I still suggest doing at least one of those types of workouts a week during that third phase, and you're also continuing to increase your mileage. And this is where you're going to do, so you're going to do 3 weeks of peak mileage, where you want to be running, I would say, around 40 to 45 miles a week, and you're going to do 2 really long runs. Now, I would suggest your longest run of the entire training phase be 22 miles. You don't need to do 26. So that's what the race is for. You don't need to run 26.2 miles before you go run 26.2 miles. But I would say the longest run I did before actually either of my marathons, any of my marathons, and I've never done over, I think 21 was the longest. And because number one, I said on race day, I said there's a lot of factors that help you be able to run the 26 miles. That so you don't have to run 26 miles before. But I would suggest no going longer than 22. But you have like the peak 3 weeks, 40, 45 miles for the entire week, with your long run being, 18, 20, 22 for those 3 weeks. Really get that base. And then once you hit those, that 22 is when you're going to start that fourth phase, which is the taper phase. And that's, I said, 4 to 6 weeks out from your race, and you're going to start actually bringing that mileage down. And you're going to, which mostly that's going to come from bringing the long run down. So, you're going to have, bringing your long run down to, as like I said, you did 22 at your very peak. Then the next week, you start bringing it down to 16, 15, 14, 12, 10. And then that final, I would say 10 days for the race, I wouldn't run any longer than 6 to 7, maybe 8 miles on your longest run. And that's to really just allow your body time to recover. And, you're going to keep up that base, but I said you're not going to be able to, like I said, at that time, the hay is in the barn, the seeds have been sown. Now you just got to wait for the rain. So that taper phase is you're tapering down your mileage, your weekly mileage, and allowing your body to recover as you get ready for race day. And then also, well, let's talk about that in the next one. But so that is the 4 phases. So we got our conditioning, building, working, tapering phases. Also during that time, I said you should take at least 1, but I would suggest 2 rest days per week. And during those rest days, you need to rest. But one of the most important things is you may need to make sure you're getting adequate sleep, not just long enough sleep, but good quality sleep. You need to make sure you're eating enough and good. So you need lots of fuel and you need lots of good fuel. So you need lots of carbohydrates, you need lots of proteins. So you're going to eat a lot of calories because you're going to be burning a lot of calories. Said do not get into training for a marathon and your focus be losing weight, because your focus should not be losing weight. Your focus should be fueling your body in order to train to run 26.2 miles. You may gain weight, you may lose weight, it just depends on what happened, but don't let that be a focus. That is not a good focus to have while training for if you want to run to lose weight, that's a whole different thing. And you shouldn't be training hard to run a marathon with the focus of losing weight. You should be training hard to run a marathon with the focus of doing something hard, of growing in mental and physical discipline, of completing the race, and treat yourself like an athlete. I said because you are training like an athlete. So you need to fuel yourself like an athlete. Eat a lot of good foods, a lot of whole foods, eggs, chicken, beef, vegetables, rice, pasta, I just like to say it funny. Cook a lot of your own foods. Take it easy on the really heavy stuff. And by heavy stuff, I mean like a lot of heavy sauces. Obviously, stay away as much as you can from processed food. So you're going to eat a lot, but you also need to eat well to keep your body fueled. That'll help that'll help your body and your muscles recover in between runs. So that way you can make sure you can give the best effort you can give on each run. Said not every effort will be your best, but every effort deserves your best. Said that your best effort one day may be 100%, the next day it may be 74%, but you're going to get 100% of that 74%. So you got to make sure you focus on that. I would suggest if trying to schedule and handle that workload is, I would suggest morning runs. I said I am a very busy person, and I know most people are very busy people, and so that may require, like I said, I got up at 4. I was awake at 4. I got out of bed at 4:30, and I met a friend, and we were running by 5 a.m. I said because I have to be home before 6:15 because my wife she's a teacher and she has to leave for work at that time. So it might require you to get up early. Now you can also do late night runs. I will say though, I would suggest doing it first and foremost, because so many times it happens when I plan on a late night run and life happens and things take longer, or I got to do this, I got to do that. Next thing I know, I ran out of time. And I can force myself to do it, and I have, and then it just creates a perpetual cycle of crappy runs and tired body, and which lead to sickness and injury. And so I would suggest getting up, getting it in, getting that work in, and you'll find that your days, even though you'll be tired, you'll ironically you'll be tired, but you'll feel better. You'll feel like you have more energy. You'll feel more awake, more focused, ready to take on the day, because obviously you got up and you got work in, you did something hard, you completed something that most people will hear about and think, oh my gosh, you're crazy. And you just feel better than everybody else, like I said. And it's because you are. You're better than everybody else. If you get up at 4 a.m. to go run while everybody else is, laying in bed and dreaming, I'm sorry, but yes, does that make me better than everybody else? Yes, it does, and I'm not going to apologize for it. But that is how I would tell somebody to train for their first marathon. That is the kind of the generic game plan, and obviously you fine tune it depending on the person. For the person who's running to run their first marathon with little to no running experience. And so on the next episode that we'll put out this week, so it's Wednesday, we'll put that out on Saturday. I think I'm going to switch it up. I think we're going to start doing Tuesdays and Fridays, but it's Wednesday. We're putting this one out on Wednesday, so we're going to put the next one out on Friday and or Saturday, and that will be going over. You've made it to race day. A race. We'll start with all of race week, how to prepare for the race, everything like that, and then actual race day. So thank you guys for listening, for joining in on another episode of the mobile edition of the Fittish Dad podcast. If you're listening to this, you're going to start training for your first marathon, comment below and let me know if there's any questions that you have, or if there's anything I can do to help. Shoot me a message on Instagram. If you don't follow me, it's Caleb B for real. Caleb B as in letter B for real. And so shoot me a message, follow me on there, and get to work, and let's go do some hard things together. Thank you guys for joining, and I will talk to you soon.